When you're looking through a research paper, there's normally quite a standard structure that they follow with a few key things that are important to look out for. So I'm just going to talk through those now. So at the top of the paper, you'll be able to see where it's been published. So it's often quite useful to look at the journal it's been published in. You might want to look at how reputable that journal is and whether it's been peer reviewed. And it'll also tell you when it's been published, and you can see where the research took place and who the researchers were as well. Underneath that information, there'll be an abstract or a summary, which will be a condensed version of the paper. It will explain what the research is about and very briefly describe the results. So that's the best place to start to get a feel for what the rest of the research paper is going to be about. And normally after reading the abstract, you'll be able to make a decision about whether you want to read on or whether it's not relevant to what you're looking for. The start of the paper will give some background information. It will often talk about associated research studies that it's linked to. And then underneath that, in the method section, it will give you some information about the participants. So one key thing to look for is how many participants took part in the study. And obviously the more participants that there are, the more likely it is that this is going to be a significant and a useful result for you to look at. You might see M written there in the participants section, and that's there to represent the mean. So they might tell you the mean age of the participants, for example. And they usually tell you how many are male and how many are female and how they've been recruited. The materials section is useful because it will tell you about the different resources that were needed for the study. And they may well be resources that you'll be able to use if you wanted to replicate something similar in your own school. So if they use certain surveys or questionnaires, for example, or a certain type of resource for assessment, you'll be able to find the details there. In the design section, they will give you information about whether it was a between participants design or within participants. Following that, there'll often be a procedure section which will explain how the study took place and what the steps were in setting up the experiment. And then finally, in the results or the discussion section, you'll be looking for the significance, so the P level, and we'll be looking to see if the P level is less than 0.05 for a significant result. And we'll want to look at the effect size. The effect size is normally recorded as D, that's Cohen's D, but sometimes it might be represented by a different letter. The discussion part of the paper is useful because it applies the findings to a wider context. So if you're looking at research about education, it might talk about how this is relevant to a school setting and what some of the implications of the findings might be. And then finally, in the references section, you will be able to have a look at any other associated research that you might find interesting to look up.